So yeah. I got my guy in the building right now, man. Let him know who he is and where you're from, man.
Uh, my nickname was Mr. Stooge. I'm an old royal from the 80s.
For sure. All right. You say an old royal, Simon City Royal, that is, right?
Simon City Royals on the north side of Chicago. I was from sections called Odell and Waveland, which is by like Harlem and Addison. I was from a section called Albany and School, which is by close to Logan Square by Belmont and Kedzie. That was the active days in the 80s. That was the fun stuff. And then I spent some retirement years in the late 80s, early 90s over by Bell Schoolyard, which is like on the north side by Western and Addison area.
Okay, right. So look, where did the name Simon City Royals come from? How did that name start?
Good story there. So the original gang club was called Simon City out of a park called Simon's Park on Drake and Wabansia, which is like north in Holman or north in Kimball. So in the after the baby boom in about 1950s, greaser gangs along North Avenue were very popular. They started rising. A lot of clubs, including the C Notes by Western and
Okay, so break down. I don't mean to stop you real quick. Explain to the people what is a greaser gang. Because you got a lot of shorties out here now, you know what I'm saying, that don't know what a greaser gang is. All right. To just interject that, you know what I mean?
Yes. All right. So we're getting to the story of how Simon City Royals came to be. And so Simon City was the original greaser gang. They were called greaser gangs because they literally greased their hair back. You have to picture something like Fonzie from Happy Days or the movie Grease with John Travolta and that look. They were called greaser gangs. They were white. They're predominantly white. And this would be at the onset of what would later become known as the White Flight. As Black and Hispanic families started moving into the Chicago area, they started moving into neighborhoods that were predominantly white, causing what was called the White Flight, white families to move out to the suburbs.
Okay.
But a lot of white families that stayed with their kids, they were all gangs. Everything was very racial. When you're a teenage boy, you fight, you're always looking to fight everybody, the kid in the next neighborhood over. So you form all these gang names and stuff. You've basically established a boundary,
right? And
now you're going to fight over those boundaries. But it became very racial as the '60s and '70s went on because of the blacks and Hispanics. So now everybody's fighting with different gangs and stuff. And greaser gangs were known as like a white gang because of the white style and usually like a white power approach.
Right. Okay.
They were okay with other white gangs mostly, but it was the black and Hispanic gangs they would fight.
So look, answer me this, and I hate to cut the Simon City Royals start. We're gonna get right back to that. So would it be safe to say that whites were the first gangs in the city? So to speak, gangs meaning groups of kids that gather together to protect a particular area for whatever cause that may be.
Yeah, for the most part. What you really see, you can look back, like the oldest gang that I know of that we have records of would be late 40s. Like on the near southwest side, the Popes and Gaylords, both white, traditionally white clubs, have early beginnings on the near southwest side in the late 40s. Oh. I mean, prior to that, you got to look at something from the movie called Gangs of New York, where you see Irish coming in the late 1800s. And forming gangs to protect themselves in really bad neighborhoods because the Irish were like the original hated race. Before Chinese and black, it was Irish. They were the original slaves because they were enslaved by Great Britain and Ireland during the Great Potato Famine. They were starving. All comes so gangs go back like that. So yeah, it was a predominantly white thing.
And the Dailies were Irish, weren't they?
And then there's the black families and what's that?
The Dailies weren't the Dailies Irish? The Mayor Daley?
Yes, Daley was Irish from the near south side. Back of the yards, I think he's from Old Irish Stronghold. neighborhood he came up in. There would have been Irish gangs in his day, and maybe even in his father. Maybe not so much. His father would have been the early start of fighting gangs, because his father was in power a very long time.
Okay.
Gangs got popular with the government in the late 60s, early 70s, especially with a man named Jeff Fort out of the Blackstone Rangers. He went to prison and then came back with a new image